This episode of The Vinyl Guide is brought to you by Groove Washer, the best record cleaner ever invented by the human species. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record shop or go to groovewasher.com and use discount code VinylGuide10 at checkout for a discount. That's groovewasher.com, discount code VinylGuide10. And we're also brought to you by AudiofileUSA.com. Family owned and operated and only sells excellent and near mint vinyl records. Don't gamble with eBay or Discogs grading from private sellers. Get your final vinyl upgrades on vintage records at AudiofileUSA.com. Well, hey everyone, it's Nate here. Welcome to episode 293 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. And today we've got an absolute legend on the show, Mr. Billy F. Gibbons, who you will know from ZZ Top. And today we are talking records from the early part of Billy's career. Now, before ZZ Top, Billy was in a band, the Moving Sidewalks, who not only did they release a few records on a private label, but they also toured with the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Billy shares stories of the records and his time with Jimi today. Plus, we also talk about the very, very first ZZ Top record, Salt Lick, which was a private press record that is super rare and collectible, and Billy shares the story of that record as well. Plus, we also discuss Billy's latest solo album, Hardware, a phenomenal album, which he made with his buddy and co-conspirator, Mr. Matt Sorum, who was on our show just last week giving his version of things. And I cannot stress this enough. Grab a copy of the new Billy Gibbons Hardware album. There's lots of interesting and beautiful vinyl variants, even some autograph copies up at billyfgibbons.com. Now, a few things to note. Going into it, I was only allotted 15 minutes of Billy's time. However, he graciously stretched that out a bit, so today's episode is a bit shorter than usual. I tried to make the most by getting into the super collectible records of his career, and Billy was in the desert, pretty well off the grid, but the wisdom and great stories came through just fine. Also to note, this conversation happened just before the passing of ZZ Top bassist Dusty Hill, so there's no chit-chat about that subject, but then again, this show is about music and records, so we stick to that subject today. And real quick, if you enjoy the Vinyl Guide and what we do here, please subscribe or follow our podcast on your podcast app and enjoy our back catalog of episodes featuring interviews with the likes of Matt Sorum of Guns N' Roses, episode 292 of The Vinyl Guide, Fred Armisen of Saturday Night Live, Portlandia, and a record nerd in his own right, episode 289 of The Vinyl Guide, Synth Master Gary Newman, episode 284 of The Vinyl Guide, Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick, episode 266 of The Vinyl Guide, and literally hundreds more. Subscribe to the podcast, dig through the back episodes, and enjoy. And without further ado, let's beam our cellular devices into the desert of Middle America and have a record nerd conversation with the legend himself, Mr. Billy F. Gibbons.
After the tone, please record your name to be announced to other callers in the call. Then press the hash key to enter the conference.
Nate from The Vinyl Guide.
You will now enter the conference.
We're powered up on this end. BFG.
Wonderful.
Billy, you're on with Nate Goyer with Vinyl Guide.
All right. Man, I'm all about it. Let's bring it on.
Excellent. All right. Well, here on the show, we talk about vinyl records, and we have a whole slew of record collectors from around the world. And you seem to strike me as someone who probably has an extensive music collection. Would that be fair?
Yes, we just added an interesting 78 on the Modern record label by John Lee Hooker called Bad Boy.
Wow.
And this was brought to my attention by none other than both Jimmy Vaughn and his sidekick, Mr. Mike Flanagan, and the three of us, of course, get to play together over the Christmas holidays with another outfit called The Jungle Show. And on occasion, we'll play the song entitled Bad Boy, done by Eddie Taylor. So we've got a new addition it expands the catalog of titles of songs that are titled Bad Boy. This is by John Lee Hooker, and they're all good. They are all good.
I've yet to hear a bad John Lee Hooker song. Now, do you collect 78s? Do you have a whole bunch of 78s at home?
Oh, 78, 45, 33. I found that, in the early days, the record players came with a speed, in addition, 16. And I never knew what to make of it. But sometimes if you're in the mood, if you want to slow things down, go ahead and set it to 16 and set the needle in the groove, and you'll be right on time.
So when you're at home, you're listening to is vinyl your preferred way of listening to music?
It's never left the turntable. Vinyl is a tactile experience. Just being able to hold it. There's something magical about putting the needle in the groove. You can read the matrix numbers in the skip band. You can read the label. It's just I don't know. It's a remarkable experience, just being able to hold on to it and listen to it.
So you go so deep as to read the matrix numbers and things like that. That's something that the real deep collectors tend to do. That's quite interesting. Do you actively search for particular records?
We've got a small group, and there's always a competition. Who knows the catalog numbers that you have to read it off the spine of an album? Of course, if you get into once you get into the matrix numbers, that's going deep.
It is. That's a special kind of record nerd who could remember that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Now you've got quite a few interesting matrix numbers to your discography as well, and I'm thinking some of these early records, Moving Sidewalks, Need Me, back on Tantara. What can you tell me about those days recording with Tantara?
Yeah, that was the Moving Sidewalks. Actually, Need Me was the second single, following 99th Floor, which kind of put us in high gear. And once that particular track opened the door, we found ourselves returning to the studio more often than we anticipated. But man, talk about having some good times. Those were some good days. We even took that. What's no secret to many, the Moving Sidewalks. We got a phone call inviting us to join this thing called the Jimi Hendrix Experience Tour. And I said, sure, let's do it. And since we're talking about vinyl, most folks that remember the early days of Jimi Hendrix, of course, their first exposure came from that great first album, which is still on the turntable. Give me 2 minutes and.
Are you experienced, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
You were already familiar with Jimi Hendrix quite a bit when you went to tour. Was he already one of your guitar heroes at that time?
Yes, we were. I had actually gone to England and came back with the Are You Experienced record. It had an extra couple of tracks from the American release, but we were sharing it around with a few vinyl freaks, and they said, gee whiz, who is this and what is this? Nobody was quite prepared for the impact that Jimmy had on so many music freaks. He just did it right.
What's one of your wonderful memories of touring with Jimmy in those early shows?
Well, every evening we were relegated to the very last room on the hallway, and he was on the room on the right, and I was on the room on the left. And there were a couple of guys that worked after hours and on no uncertain terms. Every evening was kept the door open to the hotel room with a rather large record. I call it a record player. It's actually a piece of furniture. But to my surprise, he would call me across the hall and he said, "Hey, man," he said, "how do you think they do this?" And I said, "Well, what is that?" And he said, "Oh, it's," and he tossed an album cover my way. It was the first Jeff Beck group. And I said, "Jimmy, you're asking me how Jeff Beck does this? I guarantee you Jeff Beck is asking me the same thing. How does Jimi Hendrix do this?"
Oh, that's hilarious. So when Jimmy would tour, they'd move around a big record player with him just so he could have it in his hotel room. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, yeah, indeed. And when I say a piece of furniture, this thing was the size of a Buick. It took two guys to move it in and out, but man, what a sound.
I imagine so. So with the Moving Sidewalks, you guys did the album Flash, which again is Tantera's only LP. What was it like working with Tantera Records? I believe that was Richard Ames's record label. How many of these records would he tend to make, and how would he sell them?
Well, it was an interesting gathering. It was Steve Ames and brother Richard Ames, and they formed a Texas-based label, as you pointed out, Tantera, which included not only the Moving Sidewalks. There's another great group, Neil Ford and the Fanatics, and some folk rock guys, dear friends of ours, going under the name The Magic Ring. And we just had a blast. All of us would gather. We shared a rehearsal space. We shared trips to the recording studio. Some great days, man. That's going way back.
Well, I think Tantera, if I'm right, they only made about a dozen records, which I think you were on close to 30%, maybe even close to half. But those records, all of them, are highly, highly collectible because they're so foundational in American music.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you still have quite a few of those in your collection, yeah?
Well, you bring up an interesting point. Making records, when we speak of making records, when there was only one format, and that was called vinyl, and it came in a couple of different formats. 78s were leaving the acetate shellac days, and then we had the invention of 45 RPM, 33 RPM, 33 and a third. That's when they were the only game in town, and those records were made with a manufacturing process that seems to be returning. There's quite a bit of popularity on making vinyl. In fact, you got to get in line to make sure that if you want your work pressed up in vinyl, you better get there in good short order. It's coming out strong.
You better get in line about 8 months ago if you want records. That's right. And your new album, I see you got some beautiful pressings of this, and I want to talk about it real quick. Though, let me ask you about one record here: ZZ Top's first single, "Salt Lick," on Scat Records. Now,
yes,
that is a private press, I believe. Is that one that did you guys pay for that record to be pressed? How did that come to be?
We did. We had a couple of afternoons in the studio, and we felt like we had kind of peeled the onion in a good way. It was the first excursion into ZZ Top land, and we decided to get in the game. I said, you know what? I said, we can go and play here and we can play there, but it evaporates. A live experience can be very exciting. But after the show is over, it's left to the ethos. And I said, the way to do this is to make it repeatable. So let's go press up some stuff. And we picked a couple of tracks that we really liked. And you're absolutely right. We dug deep into the pocket, and that first release, Scat, that's another rarity.
Oh yeah,
Scat backed with Miller's Farm, I think, were the two titles that appeared on that label.
Mm-hmm. And that's the only ZZ Top record. Correct me if I'm wrong. The only ZZ Top record not to have Dusty or Frank on it.
Correct. That was the first incarnation. D.M. Mitchell was on drums, and Lanier Gregg was on keyboards. We were an organ trio, guitar, organ, and B3, and it was a great jumping off point. It was really very interesting, I must say.
Do you remember how many were pressed up? Do you recall the number?
666.
Is that a true answer?
Yes, 666 copies were pressed up, and they couldn't figure out why. Of course, Floyd Swallow down there in Louisiana was the closest pressing plant. The one in Houston, Texas, was backed up, so we went over to Louisiana, and they said, well, we've got a minimum. And I said, do you have a maximum? And they said, well, if you got a hit, we better heat up the vinyl. And I said, well, how about 666? And they said, woo, that's a dangerous number. And I said, well, it's a dangerous song. You better get after it.
And Scat Records, that was just a name you guys thought up. Just what do we name the record label? Well, Scat, and have someone draw a picture of a cat on it. Was that the story, or was there more to it?
Yeah, well, Scat, with Scat Cat, you want to make sure it's going in high speeds, and of course you want to chase it with another record. So we kind of like the idea of it all.
Well, you didn't have to chase it with another record because that led you to the deal with London Records, I believe. Yeah. Yes,
they picked it up. Actually, quite. I think there's still a couple of boxes from that initial 666. I'd like to have a couple of boxes, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, if you ever get hungry, one of those records, sell that. You'll be eating well. I think those records tend to go for about $300-400 each, if you could find one.
Yeah, man. That'll buy a good steak dinner.
Now, with ZZ Top's first album, my friend Caton asked, how long did that take to record? How long were you in the studios for ZZ Top's first album?
We were there. We were in and out in short order, as we had had the opportunity to play quite a few gigs, which we considered kind of a warm-up to get back into the studio. And I guess the good news is we had rehearsed and kind of refined things as we went along. By the time the tape started rolling, we felt very confident that things were going to unfold. I don't know, in a pretty nice way. Even better was the fact that the engineering staff were big fans of what we were getting ready to lay down. So there was no hiccups along the way. We got in and got out.
Okay, so a couple of days, it sounds like.
Yeah, we were in there. Actually, it would have been 2 days, but we kept getting interrupted by the manager, and he kept wanting to make recommendations here, recommendations there. The way we got out of it, we discovered that there was a barbecue stand, which took 30 minutes to get there, 30 minutes to wait on the order, and 30 minutes to get back. So we extended the sessions at least by 2 hours a day.
All right. Well, look, Billy, I want to be respectful of your time, and I know you got a lot going on. I'd love to have you back on and talk about all the rare record stories that you have in your career. There are many. But before you go, this album, Hardware, fantastic. It is wonderful. We spoke to Matt Sorum here on the show a couple weeks ago, and he told us some stories from that. Now, I think a 3-piece is about the perfect number for a lineup. Is that right?
Yeah, I think, and this, it's a little bit, it harkens back to the old school. In fact, 2 guitars and drums. We did the Jimmy Reed style. As you know, it was Jimmy Reed on guitar and harp, Eddie Taylor. They had a few drummers that were present. But we kind of like the disparity, and of course, in the final analysis, we decided to put some low end on it, and we all shared the bass guitar duties. Austin gave it a heck. Matt picked up. Matt is, believe it or not, in addition to a great drummer, he's a great guitar player, great bass player, great singer. Just a great guy, man.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And this is your first LP without Joe Hardy. What was that journey like for you?
Well, we say that, in fact, if you'll flip if you've got a copy of the CD or a copy of the vinyl album, you flip it over and there's a very early reminiscent picture with, I call him Joe Party Hardy, and Joe may have not been with us in physical nature, but he was surely there in spirit. I don't think there was a day that went by where Joe wasn't present.
All right. Well, Billy, again, I love this album. I want to make sure everyone knows about Hardware. I put it on, and I love the way it makes my wife move. So everyone can go to...
Oh, yeah, man.
Everyone go to BillyGibbons.com. There's all sorts of vinyl. There's splatter pressings. There's multicolored pressings. I believe you could even get some autograph pressings as well. BillyGibbons.com. Billy, promise me you'll come back on and talk about records another time.
Sounds like a plan. There's the stack of platters is stacking up higher and higher, and there's more to go.
You got it. All right. You take care of yourself, and God bless, Billy.
Bueno. Have mercy, brother.
Cheers, man. Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Billy Gibbons, ZZ Top, The Moving Sidewalks, and of course his solo album, Hardware. It's a great album, people. Check it out. It's on all streaming services. But of course, there's vinyl copies as well. BillyFGibbons.com. And that's it for this week's episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thanks for tuning in. Please share this episode on your social media. Copy, paste it, put it in your Facebook, tweet it out on Twitter. Do what you got to do. Please spread the word. That is hugely appreciated. And of course, we love it when you go on and give us a positive review on iTunes and various other podcast platforms. 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10 stars, whatever you got to do. Say something nice. Make us blush. That is always appreciated. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.
That's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Send your thoughts to Nate at thevinylguide.com or follow or tag us on Instagram at Vinyl Guide. Until next time, keep spinning.